All right, we're about to break down one of the most powerful and honestly one of the most logical arguments in all of ancient literature, the Book of Hebrews. Now, you gotta forget thinking of this as just a letter. This thing is a masterful, step-by-step case for what the author calls a better way, and we're gonna follow that logic piece by piece.
Right from the very first line, the author just drops the entire premise. The argument starts immediately, no warm-up. The core claim is this: the way God communicates with humanity has fundamentally changed. In the past, it was kind of piecemeal, right? Lots of different messages through lots of different people. But now, the author says, there's one final, ultimate message, and it's delivered through one person, his Son. And make no mistake, this isn't just some minor update. This shift from a whole team of prophets to just one son is the bedrock for everything that follows. It's the launchpad for the entire argument.
So how exactly is this case made? Well, it's done through a really simple but incredibly powerful framework, a series of escalating better-than comparisons. The whole book just systematically argues that this new way, through the Son, surpasses every single part of the old system, step by logical step.
First up, the messengers. To really establish the Son's unique authority, the argument has to show he isn't just another voice in the choir. No, he's in a completely different category altogether.
The distinction the author makes is all about status. I mean, look at this. Angels who are highly respected are defined as ministering spirits. At the end of the day, they're servants. The Son, on the other hand, is presented as royalty. He's the heir of all things. He has an eternal throne. The point is crystal clear. You just don't compare a servant with the heir to the throne. They're not in the same league.
And the argument just keeps building. After angels, it turns to Moses. I mean, you could argue he was the single most important figure in the entire old system. The text praises Moses, calls him a faithful servant in God's house. But the Son is presented as the one over the house. The distinction is subtle, but it's so profound. Think of it this way. One is the most trusted employee in the company. The other is the owner's son who built the company.
So, having established that the messenger is superior, the author now pivots to the absolute core of the theological argument, the religious system itself, and specifically the priesthood.
The whole argument really hinges on this brilliant, almost surgically precise question. It is the logical linchpin of the entire book. Just think about it for a second. If the existing system of priests and sacrifices was working perfectly, why on earth would you ever need a new one? The very suggestion that you need a replacement implies that the original was, incomplete somehow.
And the contrast is just stark. The old system was temporary. It relied on this long succession of mortal priests who, get this, even had to offer sacrifices for their own sins. It was repetitive, this endless daily cycle of animal sacrifices. But the new priesthood, the author argues, is permanent. One priest forever. His sacrifice was himself, offered just once, and it achieved something the old system never could, a truly clear conscience for people.
Now, to justify such a radical idea, the author does something really clever. He reaches way back in the historical record, we're talking before the established law even existed, to this mysterious figure named Melchizedek. He's described as a priest forever, not based on his family line. This provides the precedent, almost like a theological loophole, for a priesthood that can exist completely outside the traditional system.
Okay, so if you have a new priest and a new kind of sacrifice, it just logically follows that the actual terms of the agreement between God and humanity must also be new. And this new agreement is called a covenant.
So what exactly is a covenant? Don't get too hung up on the word. It's more than just a contract. You should think of it as a testament, a really solemn agreement that defines the fundamental terms of a relationship.
And the comparison here shows a massive shift in thinking. The old covenant was external, laws written on stone tablets, rituals you had to perform. It's described as a shadow, like a placeholder pointing to something more real that was coming. The new covenant is argued to be internal, a change of heart and mind, all secured by that one final sacrifice. It's not the shadow anymore, it's the reality itself.
This quote, which the author of Hebrews pulls in from the prophet Jeremiah as evidence, really gets to the heart of the promise. The shift is from external rules you have to follow to an internal desire to follow them. It's a move from a system where sins are constantly being remembered and dealt with to one where they are forgiven and, ultimately, forgotten.
Okay, so we've got a new messenger, a new priest, and a new covenant.
But what's the required human response to all this? How do you plug into this system? The author boils it all down to one single word: faith. But he doesn't just leave it there. He goes on to define it for us. This is the book's most famous definition of faith, and it is definitely not about wishful thinking. It's defined as substance and evidence. Those are really solid words. It's about having a firm conviction in a reality that you can't see yet. In other words, it's acting on a future promise as if it's already a present certainty.
And to prove this isn't just some abstract idea, the author unleashes this rapid-fire series of examples. First up, Noah. He's warned about a flood, something not yet seen, and his faith wasn't a feeling. It was the physical act of picking up a hammer and building an ark.
Then you have Abraham. His faith was packing up his entire life and heading out into the total unknown, based only on a promise. He acted on what he was told, not on what he could see on a map.
And then there's Moses. He had wealth, power, comfort. It was all right there for the taking. But his faith was in seeing a greater, unseen reward way down the line. He chose a future value over a present pleasure.
So, the whole point of listing all these heroes, this great cloud of witnesses, is to show that faith has always been the mechanism. It's a persistent, active trust that actually does something based on God's promises, even when the final outcome is still way off in the distance.
And this brings the entire sprawling argument to its grand conclusion. After all the comparisons, all the logic, all the examples, what's the ultimate result? What does this better way actually lead to? The argument concludes with this incredibly powerful image of a great cosmic shaking. The idea is that everything that's temporary, everything that can be shaken, will eventually be removed. And in the author's view, the entire old system, the physical temples, the rituals, all of it, falls into that category of things that can be shaken. So here it is. Here's the final payoff. The entire purpose of this better way, the better messenger, the better priest, the better covenant, is to connect people to the one thing that will be left standing when all the shaking is over, a permanent, secure, unshakable kingdom. So after following this dense, logical argument, we're left with a pretty modern question, aren't we? The entire case is built on the value of permanence in a world that feels incredibly temporary. And it really forces us to ask, what in our own lives is truly unshakable? And is that what we're building on?